I used to say that life is short. I don't know anymore. It's more complex than that. When you're 20, life is a lightning strike. You think you're a passenger on a bullet train, watching the scenery blur past, terrified that you'll reach the final station before you've even had a chance to look out the window. But lying here, with the hum of the monitors and the slow, rhythmic drip of time itself, I've realized we have it all wrong. I'm 82 years old, and I've realized that life is short, is just a lie we tell ourselves to feel better about the things we're too afraid to do. If you give me 10 minutes, I can save you the 50 years I wasted trying to outrun the clock. Most people see this patch and imagine a split-second tragedy. They think my life changed in a blink. It didn't. The cable snapped in '84, but the real change happened in the 3,000 days that followed. I spent the first half of my life being efficient. I was the man who never missed a shift, who kept his head down, and who thought that survival was the same thing as success. But when I lost the eye, the world lost its depth. I couldn't judge distances. I couldn't even reach for a glass of water without overshooting it. That was the first time I realized that life isn't a race. It's a series of long, grueling rooms. I lived in the waiting room for decades. I waited to feel whole again before I'd take my wife dancing. I waited to be successful before I'd tell my children I was proud of them. I was so busy being practical and sensible that I became invisible in my own home. I felt a deep, biting confusion. I thought I was being punished, but the truth is more complex. I was just being forced to slow down. I had to learn that asking for help isn't a weakness. It's the only way to navigate a world that has gone flat. I spent years being angry at the darkness, not realizing that the darkness was where the lessons were hidden. My biggest regret isn't the accident. It's that I taught my son to be safe. I told him to choose the steady job, the quiet life, and the path of least resistance. I gave him my fear and called it protection. Now he's 50, and he looks just as tired as I was. I made him small because I was afraid of the height of his dreams. Life isn't short. It is a massive, sprawling landscape. It is long enough to forgive the unforgivable and to start a new life at 60. Stop trying to finish it. Stop treating your days like loose change. Wear the bright colors. Speak the truth that makes your heart hammer against your ribs. Look at what isn't there, because that's where the depth is. Life is the longest thing you'll ever do. Make sure you're actually there for the middle parts. I used to say that life is short. I don't know anymore. It's more complex than that. When you're 20, life is a lightning strike. You think you're a passenger on a bullet train, watching the scenery blur past, terrified that you'll reach the final station before you've even had a chance to look out the window. But lying here with the hum of the monitors and the slow rhythmic drip of time itself, I've realized we have it all wrong. The silence in this hospital room isn't empty. It's heavy. It's filled with the ghosts of every sensible decision I ever made. But yesterday, the door opened and the cycle finally hit a snag. My son Peter came to see me. He sat in the plastic chair, his posture a perfect mirror of mine. Shoulders tight, eyes fixed on his watch, checking the time as if he were afraid it might run out, or worse, stay still. He is 52 now, an accountant who hasn't laughed with his stomach in 20 years. "I'm thinking of taking that promotion in Chicago," he said, his voice flat. "It's the practical move. Better pension. Solid." I looked at him through my one good eye, the one that has spent decades learning to see through the practical fog. I saw a man who was already dead, but still showing up to work. "Peter," I said, the words feeling like gravel in my throat, "do you want the job, or do you just want the safety of the cage?" He looked at me as if I were speaking a dead language, and in a way, I was. I was speaking the language of the Tuesday that never ends. I realized then that my life wasn't short because of the accident. It was short because I lived it in a straight line. A straight line is efficient. A straight line is practical. A straight line has no depth. When you lose your depth perception, you have two choices. You can walk carefully in that flat world, or you can start creating depth through your own actions. I chose to walk carefully. I spent 40 years making sure I didn't trip, only to realize I never actually went anywhere. "Life isn't a ledger, Peter," I told him. "You've spent 30 years balancing columns of numbers, trying to make the math of your life add up to zero risk. But the math of a long life is always messy. It's supposed to be." I reached for the drawer next to my bed and pulled out a stack of loose papers. They weren't bills or medical records. They were the starts of stories, fragments I'd written in the dark when I couldn't sleep. I'd hidden them for years because writing wasn't sensible for a dock worker with one eye. "I spent my life pretending to be a machine that could be repaired," I said, handing him the pages. "But I'm a story that's still being written, and so are you." Peter took the pages. For the first time in his adult life, he didn't look at his watch. He just looked at the ink. He looked at the mess. The nurse came in to check my vitals, her movements a rhythmic dance of efficiency. She thinks she knows my story. Old man, failing heart, stable condition. She's wrong. My heart isn't failing. It's finally waking up. It took 100 years to realize that the most practical thing you can do is be absolutely, undeniably foolish for something you love. Life is long enough to be a dozen different people. I'm done being the man who survived 84. I'm becoming the man who finally tells the truth. Life isn't short. It is a massive, sprawling landscape. It is long enough to forgive the unforgivable and to start a new life at 60. Stop trying to finish it. Stop treating your days like loose change. Wear the bright colors. Speak the truth that makes your heart hammer against your ribs. Look at what isn't there, because that's where the depth is. Life is the longest thing you'll ever do. Make sure you're actually there for the middle parts.